Okay, now that we got the split view going, the collection view going, now we have to get the split view going for this particular app. So I'm going to switch back to the main storyboard. And we're going to bring in a split view. And in fact, a split view controller. Place it somewhere visible. There's a lot of stuff. I'm going to move weather 2 up here because we're done with it. And I'll move this view controller closer. There. So with our split view, we have our split view controller, which has our table view on this side and our details view on this side. We have our navigation controller. We're going to focus our attention on are actually these two view controllers, the root view controller having our actual table view here, and our details portion down here. So what we need to do is bring in two more view controllers and a table cell. So I'm going to right click on classes first and say new file, and tvOS Cocoa Touch class, and this will be a UI table view cell called weather table view cell. I hit OK and give it a home. All right, so we have weather table view cell. Now we bring in two more view controllers. So let's say new file. And this will be tvOS Cocoa Touch class. This first one will be a UI table view controller because it'll have the built-in table methods we need. I'm going to call this weather1 table view controller of type UI table view controller. It's important because the split view expects you to use a UI table view controller. So if you're trying to use just regular view controller, you'll have some issues there. And we'll give it a home. And finally, one more view controller. Cocoa Touch class. This will just be a regular UI view controller. And we'll call this weather1 view controller. And give it a home. Okay. We'll turn our attention to the storyboard again. And start subclassing stuff that we can subclass. So root view controller, we'll subclass this as weather1 table view controller. So nicely auto-completes. The view controller down here with our details will just be weather1 view controller, not table view controller. So let's see what our options are. Actually, weather1 view control is what we want, so be careful of that. And for our table cell, which is a UI table view cell here, we'll subclass this as weather table view cell. So at least we got some of the subclassing out of the way. We'll connect stuff up later. The only other thing I'm going to do is create a segue from that first button to my split view. So this button in here, up here in particular, hit Control on the keyboard, drag to this split view controller and say present modally, just so at least I have the connection up and running. All right, so now that we have our storyboard in play, we're going to start with weather1 table view controller and configure our table. So first thing we'll need is to define our city details object. So we're going to say let city data equal city details instantiated. Then what we'll do is we'll configure our table. So scrolling down, we have all of our table methods. Number of sections, I'm going to change that to be return 1. We have one table, so this will be return 1. And then number of rows in section, we're going to change this to citydata.citynames.count. So length of our array of cities. Now for our next method, which is self_row_at, which is commented out, we're going to uncomment it. And we'll say let cell equal table view dequeue reusable cell identifier. I'm going to change my identifier to be weather cell. And in the storyboard, we'll have to put this name in. And we'll add in an as weather table view cell. And now we have more to do for this method. We have to configure the cell, but what we're going to do is we're going to jump over to weather one table view cell and finish implementing that object before we can continue on here. Okay, so we're going to switch over to weather one table view cell. We're going to define a couple of outlets here. So we'll say IB outlet var LBL city extends UI label exclamation mark, and then IB outlet var IMG city extends UI image view exclamation mark. And that'll be it for this object. All right, so now we can switch back to our weather table view controller, weather one table view controller that is. We can finish configuring our cell. So we got our cell. Now we're just going to configure it, saying cell.lblcity.text equals citydata.citynames for indexpath.row. And then cell.imgcity.text, is equal to UI image named, and then citydata.cities for indexpath.row. So now let's move over to the storyboard, main.storyboard, and let's configure our cells. So here's our root view controller. It's going to blow up a bit. Let's see here. I'm going to change the title of root view controller to select your city. And in our UI table view cell, just verify we have subclassed it to weather table view cell. So I'm going to stretch it a little bit. Might be a bit too much because it's not much data there. What we're going to do here is we're going to drag an image view into this cell. Tiny little image view there. Or at least tiny for TV standards. And don't worry about the off placement of it. We'll add a label. The label like right in the center. Stretch it out. All the way. Alright, so we got an image view, we got a label. We're going to connect those up. So I'm I'm going to start with clicking on Content View. Actually, sorry, Weather Table View cell, that is. And we have here IMG City and LBL City. We're going to connect those up. I'm going to connect those directly in my document view, because it's easier to make sure I don't make a mistake. LBL City to my label. And if I click on the Attributes Inspector, Reuse Identifier, we called it Weather Cell. So now it's Weather Cell. And if you give it a run, you see all your cities. A little bit cut off because of the length, but that can be played with. So now that our table's up and running, let's switch over to, or switch back to our Weather1 view controller. Sorry, Weather1 table view controller. And let's get our didSelectRow implemented. So it's not here by default. We'll actually have to add it in manually by saying didSelectRow at, and we're going to execute a method in the other view controller, but we haven't implemented it yet. So we actually have to switch over to Weather1 view controller. And implement this first. So we're going to define our outlets. We're going to have an image view. We're going to have a few labels. So actually, before even doing that, let's switch back to, well, actually, let's define our outlets here, and then we'll switch back to the storyboard and connect them up. So we'll say IB outlet. We'll say var img city extends a UI image view. And then IB outlet var LBL city extends UI label. And then IB outlet var LBL temperature extends UI label, and IB outlet var LBL summary extends UI label. And we'll also define our city details object here too. So we'll say let city data equal city details. Now, what we'll do is we'll finish off this object, then we'll connect things up, and then we'll finish it off in our didSelectRow method. So I'm going to add a method here called updateWeather. So func update weather. And we'll pass in an argument called select, extending to int. And its purpose is to update the labels in the image every time we select something new in the table. So we'll just populate our data. We'll just say img city dot image is equal to UI image named, sorry, image, not image view, named city data dot cities of select. And we'll say LBL city dot text equals, and then city data dot city names of select. Now for temperature and summary, we'll have to call upon our get data from JSON in the city data. So we'll say city data dot get data from JSON, passing in select. So that'll retrieve our data, which we can now populate LBL temperature and LBL summary with. So we'll say LBL temperature dot text is equal to city data dot title, and LBL summary dot text equals city data dot summary. And that's it for this method. The only thing I'm going to do is in view.load, force it to update to index 0. So we'll say update weather for 0. Only because by default the first item in the list always is highlighted in a table. Alright, so let's connect things up in the storyboard. First adding our stuff. So we'll bring in an image view first. And some labels. And I want to increase the font size. Go with system font. And just copy it 3 times. And paste twice actually. There. And then clicking on the yellow circle, we'll just connect things up. So there's IMG City. Start with the city name. We'll put the summary at the bottom. And then put the temperature in the middle. Alright, so we have our storyboard all done. Now it's up to us to finish the code that we need to finish to get this functional. Alright, so switching over to Weather1 table view controller. Let's finish off our didSelectRow method. And it's giving us an error, we should actually override it. There. So what we need to do is we need to gain access to this method, update weather. So we have to jump into our split view controller, digging deeper into our details view controller from there, and then executing the update weather method from within details view controller. So we're going to say if let split equal self dot split view controller. Inside of it, we'll say let controllers equal split dot view controllers. There's a few view controllers in there. The last one in this, because this is an array of view controllers, so the last one will be our details view controller. So we'll say let details view controller equal controllers of controllers dot count -1 as weather1 view controller. Finally, just execute it. So we'll say detail view controller question mark dot update weather. Select is index path dot row. There we go. And now you have enough to run. Okay, so let's see this in action. Okay, so view weather. We see Toronto is 21.09, it's clear. Montreal, Vancouver, San Francisco, and New York City. So everybody's temperature is viewing nicely, and we can hit the menu button to go back to our home page. So essentially what we covered here was accessing a weather service using JSON objects over the internet and being able to provide that data into a table view as a split view and also into a collection view using our own customized collection view cells. And we happen to use a TV app just to understand how TV apps work and to get comfortable with the look and feel, but the look and feel is very similar to an iPhone app except you don't have the touch capability. You have to take advantage of the TV remote.